The technocrats and technocracy doesn't really care what political system it operates under. The political system is not the important thing to them. People are wondering today why the world economically is upside down. You can't manage what you cannot monitor, can't control it. What do you need to monitor? Well, I need data. How much data is enough? There's never enough data. You always need more data. They architected this for themselves. This is their creation, it's their baby. There are two economic systems fighting for control over the whole world right now. One is capitalism and one is technocracy. One's going to die and one's going to live. The question is, which one? The specifications of technocracy included control over energy, much like we have smart grid today. The smart meters that are going on the sides of homes and businesses all over America, and indeed all over the world. You have the Total Awareness Society today with all of the breakdown in personal privacy and the roll-up of consumer data, if you will, into massive databases like are being collected by the NSA and others. And we see all of the genesis of these ideas back in the original technocracy documents. The problem is they did not have the technology at the time to do what they wanted to do, and I think they knew that. And so I expect there were some futuristic discussions between those people, like, well, where is computing going? What can we do with it? It was just an idea, the idea of utopia, that they felt that technology eventually would bail them out. It didn't happen maybe quite as fast as they thought, but here we are today, and we see these things being implemented today almost in lockstep with the original document. So managing society, to them, is a lot like managing a giant feedlot of cattle. You know, say you have 50,000 cattle and all these pens, and you have to mix food for them scientifically. You know, you've got all the bins, and you load the food on the truck and you take it out and deliver it just in time for breakfast and lunch and dinner and snacks in between so they get nice and fat, you know. But, you know, the whole process is to get those cattle in that feedlot to the market, ultimately to be butchered, turned into steaks and hamburger and so on. Not that they're trying to make food out of us, that's not what I'm saying, but this is the way a feedlot is managed. You have to have means of control and monitoring of that feedlot in order to be a good feedlot operator. And so it's an engineering problem. And so the engineers that looked at society and said, hey, this is just, you know, looks just like a big old factory floor to us, or looks like a big old feedlot or whatever. It begs to be managed. And so we'll use our scientific prowess and our scientific method to figure out ways to engineer society and you know, make it much more efficient. You hear the word efficiency all the time in the writings. And make sure that the resources are balanced, that we don't strip the earth dry of all its natural resources. This is what we hear in sustainable development today. Everywhere you turn, you know, it's about conserving resources and so on, balancing resource usage to consumption or to manufacture. It's kind of a strange historical animal that had no institutional backing at the time. The concept of holism, it wasn't officially incorporated as a doctrine, if you will, into early technocracy writings, but the concept had influence over, I think, almost universally over all the people that were part of technocracy. It's just that they didn't write about it and include it in the doctrine per se. But the idea of holism is that each person, each entity, a societal entity, is a member of a larger societal entity as well. Like an individual is part of a family is part of a community is part of a town is part of a district, so on up the line, part of the state, states are part of nations are part of the global planet. No matter where you were in this holonic structure, that your real responsibility was to the greater entity that you were part of, all the way to the planetary level, you know, that you were part of that great holon in the earth. I'd say the great holon in the sky, but the great holon in the earth, I guess. And so a person didn't find his identity and his value as a person, but only as the value would come only in his relation to the other holons above him. This is antithetic to the way we think in America, where our Declaration of Independence very clearly says that we as people have intrinsic value just because we're human, just because we're born human with unalienable rights, and that we don't have a responsibility to quote unquote serve the greater good. Rather, we are guaranteed things like pursuit of life, pursuit of happiness. And so the idea of Smuts holarchy really struck a chord with all of these progressive groups, and I think in particular probably with technocracy, because as they set up their system, it very much mimicked this holarchy system, where you had all the different components being, serving the greater components above them, until you get to the, in fact, even the organizational chart, that is the technocracy organizational chart of the North American continent resembled the Holant idea, where everybody down on the lower on the ladder would serve the people above. It's a dangerous concept, a dangerous philosophy. We see it all around us today in various forms. Movies have been made supporting this idea. Where'd they get the idea? I don't know if they read Smuts, but it's just everywhere, it's all around us. The technocrats and technocracy doesn't really care what political system it operates under. The political system is not the important thing to them. The methodology is. As long as their scientific method is being used, the political ends to which it's used really don't matter. It's just that you use the correct procedure to get there. People are wondering today why the world economically is upside down. There's things happening in the world today that fit no economic model. Economists are scratching their head trying to write new laws and new things to explain what's going on in the world. It doesn't fit. Nobody, to my knowledge, in the economic world has considered that there are two economic systems fighting for control over the whole world right now. One is capitalism and one is technocracy. One's going to die and one's going to live. The question is, which one? Will capitalism survive, or will it be truly supplanted with technocracy? Because the two economic systems are they're not even oil and water. They're worse than that. They cannot exist. It's almost like matter and antimatter. They cannot exist in the same space. One will die and one will live. As you have to look at the bigger picture and how we got here to understand what really is a part and what isn't a part. But the original technocracy documents from the 30s had provisions for what they called functional sequences in governance, not government, governance, the management of society. A functional sequence was some common area in society that needs to be managed by a central authority. Healthcare would be a good example of a functional sequence. Manufacturing would be a functional sequence. Education they called a service sequence because it wasn't making anything, it was a service provided. But they specified all this stuff originally in the technocracy study course.
Only on John
And
Digger.
education, for instance, is a fundamental part of technocracy. They called it a system of continental conditioning. That was their view of education. Well, I thought education was about learning things and learning how to be, think critically and reason things out. I said, no, that may be true for you and I, but it wasn't for them. For them, it was just a matter of conditioning. And I'm sure when they wrote that, they were thinking they had Pavlov in mind with his conditioning his, the animals to drool when they ring a bell. That's really all education to them really was important for. And that's what we see in Common Core today. It's the same kind of thing. It's a system of human conditioning. It's not a system of education. You have smart grid, the idea of putting these meters and stuff on people's and businesses to control the energy that is consumed within those facilities. This is an original specification of technocracy from the 1930s. You have the massive surveillance that's going on today with a total awareness society. This was an original specification from technocracy in the 1930s. You cannot manage what you cannot monitor. That's an engineer's mindset. People need to think like engineers. You can't manage what you cannot monitor. Can't control it. So you have to manage it. Well, what do you need to monitor? Well, I need data. That's what they'll say. Well, we have to have data. Well, what kind of data do you need? Well, I need everything. How much data is enough? Though there's no such thing. There's never enough data. You always need more data. So what do you need? What kind of data do you need? Well, we need, if it's an economic system we're managing, we need to have all the financial records. We need to know what's in people's minds psychologically, what they want to buy, what they want to do with their lives. We need to have all their health records because, that's important to manage the health of the society. They need all the education records, like Common Core collects 400 data points on students now, becomes a permanent part of their record forever. It'll follow them until they die. And you have public-private partnerships, which has flavors of fascism in it, but it's not quite, but it's flavors of it. All of these things come from the same source. They were all specified and talked about in the Agenda 21 document that was produced by the Rio Conference. They architected this for themselves, and the only purpose the Trilateral Commission had in 1982 was to create a new international economic order. That was their stated purpose even then. And so now we have today sustainable development / Earth Charter / all this green economy stuff in every corner of the world today. It's everywhere. They've taken it to every nation, to every village, every district, every county, whatever. This is their creation. It's their baby.
To stay up to date with our latest videos, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking the button above this video.